I'm Abbey Niezgoda for NCA TV, and joining me is Linda Peek-Schacht, who is a veteran corporate and media communicator. Now, Linda, I hear you were the first female press secretary on the presidential campaign trail. Tell me a little bit about that experience.
Well, it was 30 years ago, 1980. President Carter was running for re-election with Walter Mondale as his vice president, and I was asked to leave the White House staff and go be the first female press secretary for a campaign. It was an interesting time because we had the hostages in Iran, we had gas lines around the block, and we had a president who had just given a speech that was basically called the Malaise speech, where he called on the American people to lift their own spirits.
And tell me a little bit about how presidential communication has changed in Washington since you were press secretary for Carter.
Well, I spent 13 years there, first in the White House in the presidential campaign and then on Capitol Hill. So I've seen a lot of changes over the last 30 years. Probably the most important change is that there's been 24/7 news and kind of the domination of what I would call spin in political discourse. Jimmy Carter believed in just giving the facts, and that didn't work out too well for him. And over the next 30 years, presidents and their spokesmen became more adept at putting out what I would call the best truth. And we've seen where that's gotten us. I'm hoping that President Obama will bring us back to a more fact-based discourse.
And from Washington to being the vice president of Coke, tell me a little bit about your stories and experiences there.
Well, being a PR person for Coca-Cola is like being a kid in a candy store. I was able to work with executives all over the world, not only training them in communication, but also working in marketing communication. And obviously, when you have the world's best-known brand, one of the most important things is to protect the reputation of that brand. So for 11 and a half years, that's what I did, and it was great fun.
And now you're working on academics and teaching and publishing an article. Tell me a little bit about your research and studies that you're doing now that you are teaching.
Well, I teach political communication. I started out teaching at the Kennedy School and then at Emerson College, and now I'm at my alma mater, Lipscomb University in Nashville. And one of the things that I believe has changed and that I have looked at in my research is a return to a desire by the American public for more fact-based public discourse. And my research looks at the kind of postmodern view of truth and how it has affected our political discourse in the last 3 decades.
Well, that is quite a journey. Thank you for joining us. For NCA TV, I'm Abbey Niezgoda.